All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to Talking Buffalo podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. I am your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you very much for locking in. Casual Friday, even though we are taping this really, really late on a Thursday night. As always, for these Friday episodes, I am joined by Maintenance Day podcast host, noted hockey author, my good buddy, Joe Yerdon, which, by the way, this is kind of a sort of a milestone Casual Friday for us. More on that in a little bit. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm good. You might hear it in my voice tonight that it's it might be a little bit more raspy, a little bit, a little bit more a little bit more radio friendly, I guess. But yeah, over 2.5 hours of streaming during the draft, talking Sabres picks. So
yeah.
I know I told you I needed like 10 minutes to take a break. I took like 25. So you being up super late is also my fault. So I apologize for that.
No.
I needed a couple minutes.
For everybody right now who is either, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple or whatever, thank you very much. Typically for Casual Friday, Joe and I hook up somewhere around lunchtime on Thursday because it's not usually like content sensitive material that needs to be done. However, this is an exception. Yeah, the first round of the NHL draft was tonight, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking Sabres. So it didn't make any sense to record a podcast before the draft came out because it literally would be outdated. So we decided to take this late. And to Joe's point, Joe, first of all, you hopped on the live stream with Anthony and Chad over at Expected Buffalo.
Yeah.
Saw you on there for a little bit, and then Joe did his own Twitch for over 2 hours. So voice is a little sharp, but you sound good to me, man. And
we'll see how good it sounds tomorrow. that's gonna be the real question, because if people call me to do interviews or stuff tomorrow, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, what's up? Yeah, you're gonna be like, dude, you just start smoking? I'm like, no, I started talking.
This is going to be a very obviously Sabres heavy episode of Talk Buffalo podcast. We will later on have our starting five draft. And when I kind of alluded to a milestone episode, that's because this is the 50th poll that Joe and I are going to do, our 50th draft, I should say. 50 starting five drafts, literally almost a full year now. It's been a lot of fun, even though I've been on the losing end of a lot more than I've won. It's still it's been fun. But before we get to that, let's in fact, before we get to the draft, there was actual news to come out involving the Sabres earlier on Thursday. And that was goaltender, or actually, let's go back to this first, Joe. If you remember during the offseason, it might have been winter, early spring, or spring sometime. Remember when Kevin Adams said, and I'm quoting directly here, we want players who want to be here. You remember hearing that?
Oh,
I was like, kind of,
we never stops. Well, do I remember hearing it? I hear it every day from him.
Well, apparently Matt Murray ain't one of them.
Yeah.
He ain't one of the dudes that want to be around here. There were reports all over the place, which, by the way, was later confirmed post-draft tonight by Kevin Adams that this deal was close to getting done. At least on the Sabres anyway. But reports all over the place that the Sabres were working on a deal to land Matt Murray, the goaltender from Ottawa. And Elliot Friedman reported that the Sabres were on the no-trade list. Like Matt Murray had 10 teams. They were on his no-trade list. The Sabres were one of those teams, and ultimately Matt Murray stuck to it. He did not want to come to Buffalo. And I think what might have gotten fans, typically would be like, all right, well, screw this guy. That's like the typical Sabre fan reaction. But then Darren Dreger reported that the deal was going to be, besides Otto even retaining some salary, was they were going to swap. The Sabres were going to move up from 16 to 7. So had this trade gone down, had Matt Murray wanted to come here and waive that no trade, the Sabres would have ended up having the 7th and the 9th pick in the draft. What are your thoughts on that? And also, I mean, maybe after we get to some draft stuff, we might talk a little bit more about the goaltending position. But Matt Murray was clearly a target of Kevin Adams, and it looks like that's going to be the kind of the player with the cap. I think his cap was what, like $6.25 million. I think I read over the next 2 years.
Juicy.
Yeah, it is pretty juicy. But what were your thoughts on that? And how it went down? And are you at all surprised that he didn't want to come here? Because I don't know, man. You come here, you're the number one goalie, man, right? You get a chance to kind of re-jumpstart your career.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you guys get NTCs and MCs for reasons, and you have that right. You can turn it down. So, I mean, listen, players get them. That's fine. I can't hold it against them. Fans can do that. I'm sure fans will, depending. But him turning down Buffalo, like, I get it. Because I mean, the situation in Buffalo isn't perfect yet. There would be pressure for him to, bring this team to the playoffs this year or next, because I think he's got 2 years left on the deal. My snap reaction was like, I don't know, that's not the guy I'd be chasing after. But talking to some other people and looking at his numbers again, because last season he got sent down to the AHL last year. Like, he had a rough time. He's had injury issues in the pretty recent past. And he got sent down to Belleville for a bit to kind of get it, work on his game, get it figured out, which, I mean, for a guy who's won 2 Stanley Cups, Pittsburgh, that's pretty tough. Like, it's a lot. It's a hard pill to swallow.
2 times in the top 10 and save percentage too. I was looking at the stats. Yeah.
And but like, when he came back, and people were just kind of like, oh crap, we got to play him again. Like, he stunk before. Why we got to play him again? Played pretty well. He was, for some of the other guys that have been mentioned, for guys that Buffalo might take a run after, Murray when he came back from the AHL was pretty solid, all things considered. But I get not being excited about it. The fact that Ottawa was taking 25%, they were going to take 25% out, was kind of necessary. 2 years left on the contract, 6.5, 6 and change cap hit, but the contract's backloaded, so he was owed way more money this year and next year on that deal. So, for Ottawa's case, I get why they want to trade him. They don't want to pay out all that money. Well, I mean, Eugene Melnyk isn't with us anymore. So, like, that, that aspect of things is kind of still a little bit, I mean, I'm sure that's still the operation there. They don't want to spend a ton of money, but the fact that, Buffalo was going to, now granted, them getting the number 7 pick out of this that's why you do that. That's why you're like, okay, we can pay him $7 million this season, and whatever it is the following year after in salary. Yeah, you do that if they're gonna swap your 16 for, you're gonna swap 16 for 7. Yeah, okay, fine, that's worth paying that cost, and you get a goalie that is probably going to be your starter, is probably going to be your number 1, that's going to be counted on to carry the load. Like, cool. Like, because if you're going to take him on, you need that sweetener. Like, you need something to make that worthwhile doing. Just taking 25% off of it, that's not enough. Like, that's not anywhere near enough. So swapping first round picks like that made a ton of sense. Murray probably sends GM Pierre Dorian from himself, though, because they were able to take that 7 pick after Murray turned it down. They were able to take that 7 pick and trade it with 39 to Chicago for Alex DeBrincat, which in Ottawa's eyes, that's a much better deal. Like, that's, they go from like giving up their top, their top pick, and, a goalie, like getting rid of a goalie that, like, they're probably ready to move on from, or, they just want to get rid of the contract, whatever the deal is.
Yeah. Cap relief to a great player.
Yeah. Right. To getting a 2-time 40 goal scorer. He scored 40 goals plus the last 2 years. And, Ottawa's position's weird because their GM last year, beginning of the season, basically said, yeah, the rebuild's over. We're done rebuilding. Like, we've got all our young guys now. We're ready to move on. And, as we saw, Ottawa was picking ahead of the Sabres this year. So it didn't really go that well for them. But now they've added a super offensive talent, which they've got some really good young players there. Brady Tkachuk's great. Tim Stützle is really coming into his own. He's a very good player. Thomas Chabot's a really nice defenseman, but they're kind of lacking in the goaltending department a little bit. Some of it's untested, unknown, and they're not terribly deep either. But, like, they've got some nice players. Drake Batherson's a really nice player. So getting to Brinkett makes them a little deeper, gives them a lot more scoring talent, and it makes more sense. But, like, in Buffalo's case, would have been really interested to see who they were sniffing around for at 7. Like, I'm really curious to know who they think would have been the guy that they could get there, because in my mind, maybe they were thinking that one of the defensemen was going to fall to him, whether it was going to be Nemec or Juracek. maybe they were thinking like, oh, if we get that 7th pick, maybe we can get one of those guys if they fall down the board. Now, obviously, neither of them fell down the board that far. So, if that was the plan, then, c'est la vie. But like, you were still going to be able to get somebody really good at 7. And then you have the number 9 pick on top of it. So, and then, who knows? Maybe you use those 2 picks to move up the board again. Maybe that's, you trade 7 and 9 to get up to 3 or something, like something goofy like that, where you're thinking like, okay, maybe this is what we can do. Maybe trade it for 4. Who knows? But, but it's a bummer for Buffalo, obviously, because that's a steal of a deal with Ottawa. Like, you get 7, you get your goalie that, you don't have to worry about it anymore. You're getting a money break on the goalie. That's perfect. That's a great deal for Adams to try to go for, to try to pull off. Now, it's not his fault it didn't get pulled off. That's just, that's player's choice. That's fine. But
he acknowledged that, Adams. I mean,
yeah.
I listened.
There's no sour grapes with that. Like, that's just business.
Is this a reality check though for fans, Joe? When you look at Matt Murray, so he nixes a deal, he vetoes a deal that would have, brought him to Buffalo. He goes into the season. I can't imagine he doesn't go into the season as the number 1 goalie. And the Sabres get, again, another top 10 pick. If you're a fan of the Sabres and you've been surrounded by a lot of optimism over the past several months because of the way the team has looked at times and this young core, and there's lots of reasons to be optimistic. And you're like, okay, this team is going somewhere. And they very well may be. Matt Murray's just one player who might be an overrated player at 28 years old or whatever, who would want to come here. But my point is, all right, so you get a goalie who's in a situation where like maybe he wants to get an opportunity to be that guy and really kind of, jumpstart his career. And he could come to this team and he certainly would have that opportunity, that's for sure. But he nixes it. Do you feel like that's kind of a reality check for fans where it's like, you know what? We're not there yet where people do want to still come here.
No, I don't think that's the case. Obviously, that's got to be Adams's line. Like, we want guys who want to be here. But I'm so sick of hearing that. I'm so over hearing that line. Like, that's very
tonight too.
Company line. Yeah, I know he did. It's just it's the company line. It's the modus operandus. I get it. Like, I'm fine. You can make that the deal if you want to. But like, listen, this is it's a goalie who's won 2 cups, who's a veteran, who's got he's got a contract that he signed with Ottawa. Like, it says, it's his call. Like, if he don't want to go to Buffalo, he doesn't have to go. Like, maybe his experiences in Buffalo in the past weren't great. Maybe, maybe he's been here in the past. He didn't like Buffalo. Maybe, Mike Bales is his former goalie coach from Pittsburgh is the assistant coach / goalie coach here in Buffalo. Maybe he didn't have a great relationship with Bales. I don't know. Like, those are all things that could be part in that decision-making, but to say it's a knock against Buffalo, I don't think so. I really don't think that's the case at all. I think that's just, that's just the player's own individual feelings about it. It would be, sure, it would be a good challenge for him, but I mean, he's still trying to get his career kind of back and figured out and back in order, going to a new situation with a new team where, the aspirations obviously are to be a better team and to get to the playoffs. Yeah, it's the same situation as Ottawa. So it's, it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And, there's that. Now, I know one of the stories was like, because obviously everything surrounds the Maple Leafs, no matter what. The Maple Leafs need a goalie. I mean, they just traded Peter Mrazek to Chicago. Like, they're looking for a goalie too. If they don't re-sign Campbell, then they're definitely looking for a goalie. But like, if they wanted to trade for Matt Murray, apparently Murray would go to Toronto. So like, but that's different. It's a different situation. Toronto's a team that can win the cup next year. That's their aim. But to go to another team that's in the same spot as Ottawa, I understand it. Like, yeah, I get it. Like, I can get it, but it's not a shot at Buffalo. Fans, if they want to take it as a shot at Buffalo, go ahead, feel free. Like, that's fine. But they're gonna get a goalie. Sabres are going to get a goalie, and whether it's somebody that wants to be here or they just don't have the trade protection to keep them away from here, that's that's fine. But to get hung up on Murray turning down the deal, like, that's fine. I don't know that you earn that right to get it in your contract. You can use the hammer whenever you want.
I always constantly compare the Sabres losing now to the Bills losing. I mean, the NFL is quite obvious, very different. You don't get to submit a list of 10 teams that you don't have to go to in the NFL. They get traded to, but I guarantee you the Bills were probably on a lot of those 10 lists for 17 years.
Yeah.
And a little bit telling that, the guy gets to eliminate a third of the league, and Buffalo is on there. Now, you mentioned the goalie. I'm glad you did too. And then we're going to get to tonight's draft, because I want you to break some of that down. But I'm thinking as this is going down with Matt Murray, I'm like, and then it falls apart. If you're UPL right now, and we talked about this a lot last week. In fact, I put a clip of this up on YouTube, but a lot of people had a lot to say about that. Mostly people agree with you and Lance, because that is very likely what's going to happen. They are going to get another goalie. Whereas my stance is, yeah, maybe they do for cap reasons, whatever, but I still feel like at the end of the day, UPL and Anderson are going to be the two that start the season in Buffalo. Today tells me, nah, that's probably not going to happen. Now, if you're UPL, and even if this fails, he wants another goalie. Now you know it. Now it's no more guessing. Last week we were speculating. Now we know the Sabres are definitely in the market for another goalie right now. How do you handle it if you're UPL? Because if you're UPL right now, you kind of gotta know that unless everything fails, the odds are when the season begins on October 13th in Buffalo against the Ottawa Senators, that you probably ain't going to be wearing a Sabres uniform that night. What are you thinking if you're UPL right now?
It's my motivation. If I'm looking at it, that's my motivation. Like, hey, then this is going into the assumption that Adams has already had this conversation with him. Like, hey, this is what we're thinking for next year. This is what this is what we've got laid out. Nothing happens by surprise. Like, I mean, if you do something by surprise like that, you're probably not going to be a GM too much longer. Not letting your guys know where they stand and where things sit.
Right.
And that's just that. That's like Tim Murray, Dan Bilesma days kind of stuff. Where you're just kind of like, yeah, well, they know they'll figure it out. Like, no, maybe what if they just learned it right now? What if they learned it by watching this press conference? Like, what you think of them? Like, that's stuff you can't be doing. But I have no doubt Luukkonen knows what the deal is, and honestly, like, his season ended with an injury, not his fault. He got trucked by a guy from Utica, and his AHL numbers weren't great. So he knows that there's a lot for him to prove. His NHL numbers were good when he came up, no doubt, but that's not enough of a sample size to be like, okay, he's one of our two goalies in Buffalo next year. Like, you can't risk a lot of what you're doing by doing that. Like even the Bruins, like Jeremy, look at the Bruins situation. Jeremy Swayman was lights out 2 years ago at the end of the season. You're like, whoa, this kid might be really good. But like, he played 9 games and the Bruins were like, well, he's really good. Rask is, probably going to retire. We need a goalie still. And they went and signed Allmark, because you're like, I don't know. Swayman's 9 games are great, but like, is he the guy? I don't know if he's the guy or not. And then this year plays out the way it did. And you're like, oh, okay, Swayman's the guy. Like, he's almost certainly going to be the guy. Like, he had a great rookie season. So like, you feel comfortable with that. It's not the same situation here. Luukkonen, we've talked about it so much about Luukkonen's, how his development's got kind of futzed around, and, the injuries and all that stuff like that. All that plays a role in him not getting the development time that he's needed. So, listen, I'm Kevin Adams. I can't rely on him to be the guy. I can't say, put him penciled in as one of the two guys in Buffalo. I just can't do that. That's not how like this whole thing that they're doing is supposed to play out. Like, they got to know what he is. And they kind of have a pretty good idea now, but I want to see him totally healthy. I want to see him take the AHL by the ears and really dominate it and really just own up to what they're doing. Now, granted, they got to help him out a little bit, need better defense, need better stuff there in Roch to help out the goalie. But at the same point, you can't really rock an under 900 save percentage and be like, no, I belong in the NHL. Right. At the AHL level, you can't make those claims. Coach Seth Appert loves him, thinks he goes to bat for him all the time. I think he really likes him. So, but like, the thing is that you just don't know for sure. And taking a risk like that, you can't do that when you're when you're building what you're building in Buffalo. You can't just take a swing like that and say, no, we really believe in him and we think he's going to do it this year.
Right. I'm starting to see that. I didn't see it as much last week, but between going back and listening to our show and reading stuff and then seeing how things played out today, it's starting to register more with me that, hey, maybe UPL will be the goalie down the road, but it's not going to be in October of this season.
Yeah.
Very likely. I like your point too, by the way, that the key is Adams needs to communicate with UPL. You don't want to blindside a player. You know, we like you a lot. We like you so much. Oh, by the way, then you read in the newspaper that there was almost a trade made at the position you played. You know?
Right. So but like if he comes out and he just like starts killing it the first, 2-3 months of the season or something like that, and you're like, okay, all right, he's ready. Like you can make that move kind of easy because, listen, again, you love Craig Anderson, you love what he does and all that, but like if you need to sit him down to have UPL get games, that's easy.
Sure.
That's a slam dunk move. You don't feel bad about that. And honestly, Anderson's probably like, yeah, if that happens, cool. Like I get it. Because obviously whatever other goalie you're bringing in, that's probably the guy you're penciling in to start 65% of your games. So, but if UPL dominates like that at the AHL level and you got to get him up here to see if that's for real, fine. Like you don't feel bad about bringing him up in that case.
I definitely, I don't know if I believe in UPL yet, but I know I haven't given up on him because he did have, it was a small sample size, but his numbers are pretty good with Buffalo this year, better than they were in Rochester last season. So draft, we're talking about the Sabres. I remember on this podcast a year ago, I think you might have come up with the saying down the drain for Shane. I remember talking about that roughly a year ago or so. And I was like, all right, the take is on because Owen Power was not the consensus surefire number one pick about a year or so ago, at least before the draft, earlier in the process. It wasn't a given 100% lock that Owen Power was going to be the first pick. It seemed like it, but it wasn't a complete lock. Not like Shane Wright was supposed to be a year ago, put it that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I know things started to change as it got closer to the draft and you started to hear some rumblings, but man.
Yeah.
Dude, not only not the first pick, he wasn't the second or the third pick either.
Yeah.
So he goes 4. And again, I don't know much about these players, and I'm not going to try to pretend I do. But I do know one thing. That motherfucker was not happy.
No.
He was no. I don't know, like if he's mad. Seattle picked him 4th, right? I think it was Seattle.
Yep.
Right,
Seattle.
so I think it was, and he looked at that Montreal table on the stage with the death stare, man. Like he was ready to kill somebody. And then he put on that phony smile. He kind of got screwed a little bit in terms of, just his fit. Now we'll see. Who knows? Maybe down the road, just be the best thing to happen to him.
Right.
Cooley went 3rd to Arizona. Kind of the same deal. Like he did not look like he was very happy. I remember when Stephon Gilmore was drafted by the Bills and he couldn't hide the fact that he wasn't happy. Yeah. These guys were not happy. But anyway, were you kind of, I don't know if you were stunned that Shane Wright didn't go first, but are you stunned that he lasted to the 4th pick? Because I'm going to tell you right now, again, me, a non-prospect knowing Sabres fan, for the only time during the whole draft was yelling at the TV, oh, the Sabres move up. They got 9, they got 16. Go get Shane Wright at 4. Yeah. Were you stunned?
Yeah. A lot of the draft insiders were talking about this possibility. Corey Pronman, the Athletic had mentioned this. His final mock draft played out exactly how this top 4 played out.
Wow.
Like that's, and I don't know if I don't know if he nailed the top 5 or not, but like once it got down to Wright, I was like, that's where I stopped caring about because it's like, if you're saying he's not going first, well, where the hell is he going? So the fact that played out exactly how Corey had it, I was like, oh, okay. All right. So it is surprising. It's completely surprising. This is the guy that for this draft class has been basically since he was 15. You're like, he's the number 1 guy.
Yeah.
The skills, the numbers and all that stuff, it's not the same level as McDavid. It's not the same as Crosby. It's none of that stuff. But like, since he was 15, he was viewed as the elite guy. He's going to be the top guy out of this class. It's like, like next year with Bedard. Like Bedard's, people are already talking about like, well, if he was in this class, he'd be number 1. It's the Austin Matthews thing again.
Sure.
Where, if Matthews was in the McDavid Eichel draft, they're like, oh, Sabres would have taken Matthews second. Like that, that kind of thing.
I've already heard the Blackhawks are in the process of starting to tank for him already.
Yes. They traded a 40 goal scorer who's 24 years old, and they picked up a Leafs goalie who is horrible this year. Yes, they are. Once if they trade Kane, if they trade Taves, then like it's on. Like they traded Kirby Dach. Like they just drafted him a few years ago. He's gone. Okay, they traded him to Montreal. So Chicago is very early out front for being in the race for Bedard. But like when it comes to right though, like I think Montreal is lucky they're not in the Western Conference, because that is a chip on your shoulder. I'm gonna mess this team up game every time. Like he plays Montreal, and like twice a year with Seattle, like okay, you can live with that, but man, I don't know what in my mind when your choice is between a top winger and a top center, you take the center, because the center does more stuff. The center has more defensive responsibility. Now, if he's terrible defensively, then like, all right, fine, but he wouldn't be the consensus number one pick for most people if he was bad defensively. In fact, he's very good defensively. He's very good offensively. He is the captain of his team. People looked at his numbers and they thought his numbers were down, which 90 some points in 60 whatever games, still really good. That's really, really good. But people were like, well, we expected Crosby numbers, we expected McDavid numbers, we thought he was going to be unbelievable. It's like, well, okay, that's ridiculous. Once in a lifetime players. Oh, he's not as good as this once in a lifetime guy. He stinks. Like, no. His two line mates for the most of the season were like 16-year-olds that the coach entrusted him to help them get acclimated to playing in the CHL and getting better. I don't know. Take that into account. Like, I mean, listen, scouts watch more games. They do all this stuff. Maybe they know something the rest of us don't, but it seems insane. It seems insane that that not only that Montreal would just take a winger, which, I get Montreal's side. I can kind of understand why. Nick Suzuki's really damn good. Really great center. They added Kirby Dach. Okay, so you got a couple centers. They're both young. They're both really young. Do you want to add an 18-year-old center to that mix of already really young guys? To me, yes. Yeah, fine. Like, it's fine. I can live with that, because if they're all going to be really damn good, that's the way to live. Yeah. But Jersey passing on them, which you can make a stronger argument that maybe they didn't require another center. They've got Nico Hischier, who's a great two-way center. Jack Hughes is a very, very good scorer, and he's getting much, much better as the years go on. So you can say they have bigger needs at defense, which they do. But I mean, you're not necessarily drafting for need in the NHL draft. You're drafting to make your team better down the road. But and Simon Nemec is going to be really damn good. He's going to be really damn good. He was a guy that, in my mind, if he fell down the board and got to 7, that's why Buffalo tries to trade up and try to get that 7 spot, because he'd be like, okay, we're definitely taking a forward one of these, but if that defenseman's there, we're taking him. That's what you're kind of preparing for with that sort of move. But Nemec is really good. Logan Cool. I'm pretty sure Arizona had Cooley's jersey made up, the second they got the number 3 pick, because they figured Wright's gone. We're not taking a defenseman. Slavkovsky's not going to be there, so Cooley's our guy. And then Cooley's there, Wright's there too, but but they were probably not. I don't know. I can't explain what their thing is. Cooley's going to be very, very good too. So I get it.
Yeah, but he's in Arizona, so
right. So, but he's going to get to play on a college campus, so it's not so bad for him. But I mean, I look at it for Seattle. Matty Beniers falls in their lap in the first round last year, and you're just kind of, wow, that's pretty lucky. And now this year, the guy who before this season, 2 months ago even, was the consensus number 1 pick falls in their lap.
Yeah, it's
so for Seattle, that's an amazing turn of events for them. I compared it to Vegas, because Vegas just kept making trades with Vegas around the expansion draft, where they just kept handing them quality players. It turned out to be pretty good for Vegas. Seattle they're doing it more on the traditional expansion way of doing things. Build through the draft, start slowly, and go that route. Well, now they've got 2 guys who are going to be their top 2 centers without a doubt. Yeah, already. They're that's their 1-2 punch immediately already, and that's for a slow burn team, for a slow burn expansion team, like that's pretty damn good. So, good for them. But holy crap, man! If this doesn't pay out for Montreal, I was joking with Chad and Anthony saying, like, listen, Montreal they've been crying about getting centers for 20 years, basically since Saku Koivu retired or when he left Montreal. Like, they're like, we need a center, and then they get Nick Suzuki. They're like, we got a center, and it's like, well, you need more than one. And like they get all these quality forwards, and they're like they try to cram them at center, and it's like they're not centers, man. They're wings. Yeah. This time, the best center in the draft is right there to take them, and they don't. And they take, a very big, very skilled, very big scoring winger in Slafkovsky, which, hey, listen, great player. It's a great pick, but you're picking number one. You can't miss that. You cannot miss on that pick.
Yeah. Well, to your point about hockey drafting in general is so different than football, because football, you're taking guys even at the end of round one, like Kyrie Elam for the Bills. He's your starting cornerback day one. 99% of these dudes ain't even going to be in the NHL for a year or two at least, so you draft talent, and you draft the talented players. And Shane Wright, I don't know him, like his DNA. I don't know what his makeup is. I don't know his personality, but I can't imagine this dude's not going to have the biggest chip on his shoulder and maybe the history of the league. But anyway, I want to take a real quick break. We're going to come back. I want to get into the 3 picks that the Buffalo Sabres made on this Thursday night first round of the NHL draft. Be right back. All right, I'm back with Joe Yerdon. So the Sabres did not move up or down with any of their 3 picks. Kevin Adams did say afterwards that he called about moving up with every pick. At least he made a call, whatever. I don't know. Take that if what it's worth. But anyway, at pick 9, I'm pretty happy because the Sabres took 3 players that have semi-reasonable pronounceable names. I am absolutely horrible when it comes to hockey and names. It's absolutely embarrassing. But pick 9 was one of the guys that I actually did spend a good amount of time reading, because Matthew Savoie, and I did say that right, correct,
yes,
Joe?
You did. You nailed it.
How about that, Pat?
I'm glad you did.
Yes, I did. But anyway, I read a lot about him because he was in the mix, and he was a player. I watched some YouTube highlights. Again, I don't know these prospects well whatsoever. Like most people, I read Lance from the Buffalo News. I read a lot of the athletic stuff. I read NHL websites, prospect stuff. This guy is a player that seems to be a good fit for the Sabres. He's 5'9". By the way, all 3 of the draft picks tonight were all under 6 feet. Matt is 5'9", 175, shoots right-handed, played with Winnipeg in the WHL, 35 goals, 90 points in 65 games last year. So after the picks, what I started doing, Joe, is I started going to a couple websites and looking at where they were ranked before the draft. The Athletic Scott Wheeler had him ranked 4th overall in the draft. He was 4th on his board. NHL.com had him 4th among North American skaters. Sportsnet had him 6th. EliteProspects.com had him 9th. And, of course, the famous Bob McKenzie, TSN, had him 9th. I want to get your thoughts on the pick. And he also, I want to read a tweet from the media scrum. This is what he said. He says, I'm super excited to be a part of the Sabres organization. They have a ton of good young talent and veteran leadership. You can sense when a team likes you a little more than the others. And he said that a couple of times, that he got a sense that he thought the Sabres liked him more than the others. So again, if you look at the pre-draft rankings, they kind of fall in line. I want to get your thoughts, and then I'm going to read an evaluation from the Athletic as well. But first, I want to get your thoughts on the pick.
Savoie was a guy that I had started hearing from some people. It was about like end of May, I want to say end of May, very beginning June, where Savoie had a very high profile as a guy, like scoring wise, speed wise, skill wise. Like he was a guy that ranked out as somebody who was going to be an exciting guy to draft. And I started hearing that like he might be there for Buffalo at 9, and I was like, okay, all right. Like if he's there at 9 or 16, like that would be that's a great guy to land, because again, it's the exciting level of the talent and the ability and the pace of play that he plays with. Like these are all things that teams are in need of now. You look at the style of play the Avalanche do, where it's high octane, speed, skill, all that. Savoy's out of that mold. Like that's the way he likes to play. That's where he wants to be. So I really like the pick, and I like it because also very selfishly because I was like, that's got to be the guy. Like if he's there, I mean, weird stuff happening aside, like if he's the guy that's there, I think that's the guy you go for. Even with him not being, a 6 foot plus guy, like whatever. So many guys have proven you don't need to be a giant to have a lot of success in the league. Johnny Gaudreau's
I heard some Braden Point comparisons on the radio.
Yeah, I mean, production wise, yeah. Like I think that's not a bad guy to compare to. But like, I mean, if he turns out to be a Braden Point style player, holy smokes, man! Like that's an unbelievable addition. But his profile and the way that he plays the game, man, like it's another guy that offers an element that the Sabres need a little bit more of.
Mm-hmm.
And has maybe a little bit more to him than say, other guys that are similar that they've got, like Isaac Rosén, kind of similar mold. I think Rosen's more of a winger than a center. And Savoy, listen, he started as a center, again, ended up being a winger anyways. Whatever, it's fine. But I mean, he's a guy that, they scouted very well. They asked Peyton Krebs about him. Krebs played in Winnipeg in junior hockey. So, it's a guy they got to know a lot about, through a lot of different routes. So, it's a pick that I really like for them. I think it's just a really smooth pickup. He's a guy that's, like I said, he's got to offer an element that they need elsewhere in the lineup. And yeah, you don't have to push him to the NHL right away. Like I think that's the main thing. Like you pick a guy like this now, 4 or 5 years ago, you're like, can he play right away? Can we get him on the second line right away? Now you're just kind of like, no, play another year in Winnipeg, play another year, play 2 years in Winnipeg, then go to Rochester, and then we'll get you figured out from there. But I mean, he put up some great numbers last year, 90 plus points in 60 whatever games.
Yeah.
Just a stupidly good season. So I like him. I like that pick quite a bit.
Let me put up for you too, but I'm going to read this. The Athletic, this was Scott Wheeler, I said, had him 4th in his evaluation of these prospects. This is what he said. He says, there isn't a player in this draft class whose game thrills more than Savoy's does when he's firing. Inside the offensive zone, he's lethal. He's got extremely quick side-to-side hands that help him beat defenders one-on-one off of cuts. He's got an NHL shot, which he can place with pinpoint accuracy from a bad angle and rip by a goalie clean from a distance. But he also loves a change-up and slide 5-hole. On and on and on. I'm not going to read the whole thing because we'll end up being here all night. But anyway, very high on him. And then you go also to the evaluation of the picks. And he was very high on the pick as well. So seems like a good pick. And again, who knows how it plays out? You never know, especially with hockey players. It seems they're more unpredictable. Maybe, well, actually, baseball draft picks might be the most unpredictable. Yes. But anyway, Matthew Savoy, pick 9. The Sabres, again, picked at 16, did not move up or down. And they took Noah Oslin. Mm-hmm. I said that right. 2 for 2, baby. You
nailed it.
18-year-old kid. He's small, man. 5'10", 164.
Yeah.
He's from Sweden. Mm-hmm. Let's look. I looked up some stats. He had 42 points in 32 games or 39 games with Djurgårdens. You'll see how, dude, I'm on fire with pronouncing these correct tonight. The junior 20 team last season, 10 points in 6 games at the under 18 Worlds. He was named one of the players in the tournament. Sweden won the gold medal. Bob McKenzie, I looked it up. Bob McKenzie had him 22, and Scott Wheeler, who we just talked about, had him 23. He did say in his post-media scrum that he thinks he only needs 1 year in Sweden before he comes to North America. Those are his words after being drafted. I'll turn over to you again. What are your thoughts on that pick? Going with another speedy, skilled set, smallish forward.
Yeah, no, getting a Swedish kid's always fun because, listen, they've got a lot of Swedish connections on the team. So that's nice. obviously you're going to take your time with him. He's light. You're not going to play at that size of the NHL level. Like that's just not happening. But again, you can just take your time with him. You don't have to rush him. Let him get a nice, real full year playing for Djurgårdens and see what happens there. Now, if something happens where it's like a Rosine situation where he gets buried and he's not playing a lot, then you just be like, all right, man, just get over here, play here. We'll get you developed here. We'll take care of business. But the Sabres have had a little bit better luck in the past with guys coming through Djurgårdens. So I don't think they're sweating that too much at this point. But yeah, he's another guy where if you looked at his name through mock drafts, shows up anywhere. Like you could see him. Some people were thinking maybe him at 8 to Detroit. Some people were thinking like, oh, maybe he slips down past 20. Like this is what we said about the draft. Once you got past about 5 or 6, well, we actually said once you get past 3, things get crazy. But obviously this year was a little different. But the way it actually played out, anyways. But he, I don't know. It's leaning again on skill and ability with this guy. You're aiming at upside. Like you're not putting all your eggs in the basket on potential and upside. There's obvious skill there. There's obvious ability. Against his peers, he's scored pretty well. You feel pretty good about that, and like that's a real nice pick. I think it's a real nice pick. It makes a lot of sense. And again, they've had very good fortune with Swedes. They've done very well picking guys out of Sweden. And that, you can't always just judge it by how other guys do, but
sure.
But his profile is very strong. I like the pick. People getting hung up on just picking centers because, all 3 of their picks were centers, but Adams pointed out very quickly, it's like, it's easier to have a guy go from center to wing than the other way. So having that, the versatility to be able to do that, is good. Like you want guys this age to be versatile. Like it's a necessary thing, especially at forward. Like defense, it's a little different, but forwards, like, listen, if you can find the place where they can have the most success and put them there, that's good. Obviously they figured out how to do it with Tage Thompson and, with a handful of other guys, but yeah, I like this pick. It's a solid pick, but I think in my mind, I think you're hoping that he can spend maybe 2 really good years in Sweden before bringing him to Rochester. You don't want to have to feel like you have to do what you did with Rosine, where he didn't play hardly any time with his team, and then you're just kind of like, we can't waste another year with him over there. We got to get this under control.
Right. Let me read from Scott Wheeler from The Athletic. I won't read the whole thing, but a couple of highlights. His evaluation, he had him again ranked 23rd. He says Oslin's calling card is his airy, agile skating stride, excellent hands, cleverness, and two-way ability. The skating and defensive aptitude, including on faceoffs, make him an able penalty killer, which is pretty cool. And the rest give him clear tools of creation at 5-on-5 and the power play. He also points out at the very end of the evaluation too that he's got 2 years left on his contract with Djurgårdens, but the second year has an out built in if they aren't promoted back to the SHL from hockey, whatever the hell that
Hockey Allsvenskan. It's the second league. There's a promotion and relegation in most of the European leagues, and Djurgården got knocked down, so they had a rough season.
He also says some scouts worry about whether he'll be able to get to the inside and hold his own physically along the wall against pros, and his score a ton even against his peers this year, given his talent level and line mates. But his approach in skating should help mitigate against that. I like him a lot. Okay, yeah. So it's another pretty good. You can never have too many forwards, on this team. Good pick. You like the pick.
Yeah,
seems like evaluators like the pick.
I'll say this though, like Scott mentions that his strengths are with his skating and his ability to handle the puck. Those are 2 things that are very difficult to teach as time goes on. Like if he's already a very top level skater with his ability, that's a huge hill that some guys have to try to climb as they go through juniors or college or whatever. If he's already at a really good level there, it's one less thing you got to worry about as they evolve as a player. And if they can handle the puck and weave in and out of traffic, I mean, listen, puck possession's the name of the game now. If you got a guy that can dart in and out and be able to keep possession of the puck, again, it's an ability that you want guys to have, especially a center. That you want guys to have that ability right off the hop. Again, the size is an issue, and a guy that's he's not going to be that big when he hits the NHL. Like it's not going to happen. But
right.
But if he stays on like that more slight side of things, when he gets to the AHL, if he gets to the NHL, if he stays on that more slight side of things, it gets tougher. I mean, NHL is the toughest league in the world. Like, I don't have to say that. Like, everybody knows that. But everybody hits harder. Everybody's faster. Everybody's better at everything in the NHL. So, but if he's able to use his agility and ability to get around, to not get hit, suddenly that size doesn't look like such a big deal, especially if the skating's good and you got good speed. I mean, all it takes is one hit to kind of, put you in your place. But again, like he's not going to stay 155, 165 pounds forever. Like that's just not the case. So again, when the strengths are in those areas and he's got the really good skill, especially two-way, like, like to have a guy that you don't have to worry about being terrible at his own end. But when you've got those other skills, but you've got those abilities already at an advanced level, then you feel pretty confident about leaning into a guy like that.
Okay, so they had one more pick, 28th overall, Yuri Kulich.
Yes.
18 years old. God damn it. I thought I was going to get through all three without messing up, but I knew it. I said it several times before this podcast. He's 18 years old, 5'11", 172 from the Czech Republic. He looks, even though his weight is only like maybe 10 pounds more, he just looks thicker to me than who the hell were we just saw? Oh, Noah Ostlund. He looks thicker to me. Anyway, I looked up some stuff with him now. He was the number 13 ranked international skater per Central Scouting, 18 on Bob McKenzie's list, and he was 22 on Scott Wheeler from the Athletics list, which is actually one higher than Ostlund, actually. So his rankings, and again, it doesn't really mean much, a year, 2, 3 years from now. But, if you're looking for guys who are potential steals, it's pretty cool that this guy that they got at 28 was ranked as high or even a little bit higher in a lot of Central Scouting, rankings than Noah Ostlund was. What are your thoughts on that? And again, they go 3 straight picks with a kind of somewhat undersized, skilled, speedy forward.
Yeah, seeing him go to the stage, the first guy I thought of was Ivan Drago, with the way he looks. Like he's got the chiseled jaw. Like you're just like, whoa, this guy's a badass. Just like looking at him, you're like, whoa, okay, all right. This guy looks tough. I don't know if I want to cross this guy, but like, I mean, he's not like the big hulking dude. Like he's a strong center. The fun part with him is that people are going to look up his stats. Obviously, that's what everybody does. You draft somebody and you're like, okay, what did he do? And you're going to look at his numbers and you're going to be like, how did this guy go in the first round? Look at his stats stink. You're looking at the 14 points player for this team in the Czech League. Come on, the Czech League's not even good. What the hell's going on here? Well, he was 17, 18 years old playing in the top league in Czechia. Yeah, got to make sure I keep saying it the right name, Czechia. And it was the most points that a player that age has had since Marty Necas of the Hurricanes did it a few years back. Now he could play in Czechia again next year. He can play. He was drafted by a team in the QMJHL in junior hockey, so he could come over. He could come over and play there if he wants to, or if the Sabres suggest strongly that he do that. Like that's fine. But the kid, like the thing about him that people were that I checked in with about him, they rave about is his defensive ability. Like they say he's a really strong defensive center, which again, very valuable to have in a player that young. I would like to see him more again. And this is weird to say, given that he played in a men's league. He played almost 50 games in the Extra Liga. Like it's it's a lot of games, man. Like that, it was for a kid that young playing against adults. Like, I mean, this is the same league, I think. I don't think Yager's team was in the second league, but like that's the league Jaromir Jagr owns a team and plays in. Like, okay, like that's that's the level we're talking about here. But he I would like to see him more against guys his age, just to get the better comparison factor. Comparing him against, guys who are 25, 27, 28, 30 years old. I mean, that's cool. Like if he does really well against them, that's great. But also, like, I want to know how he does against his peers. So seeing him, like, his stats in the under 18 tournament were pretty strong. He scored 9 goals in the under 18 tournament. Like, it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good haul there. 11 points in a handful of games. Like, all right, like that's good. But that's why I kind of want to see him go play in the queue next year or this season coming up. We're in that weird transition time between the season just ended, the new season's not here yet. Like, what the hell? But I mean, listen, there's a ton of ability there. And if that offensive game doesn't totally evolve as when he makes his way up into the pros in North America, if it doesn't totally get there, but the defensive game's really good, fine. If a guy's got that ability somewhere within him, that the goals can happen at any time. But if he's asked to be the kind of like tough flex guy to get those tough assignments and defend against top players, boy, that's a win. Like you're already, and not to get this kid too far ahead down the road, but you're looking at a team that's got Tage Thompson, you've got Dylan Cousins, you've got all these guys up the middle that their roles seem to be pretty clear already. Peyton Krebs, all these players. So if you get a guy where maybe you're thinking like at worst he could be like in your bottom 6 lineup, I mean, that's great. I mean, obviously you want to have higher expectations for guys you take in the first round, but I don't know. But if that's like the base level you're looking at, it's a pretty solid pick. That's a really solid pick. So I like I said, I want to see him more against guys his age just to get a better idea of where he sits at that. But I mean, listen, if you got him playing in the top league in Czechia, like, okay. Like, because he's doing very well if that's the case.
You look at Savoy and you look at Oslin and Kulich, and it's like you definitely want to get excited because the Sabres already have a nice little young core now. And then you got Quinn and you got Paterka. And, maybe 2-3 years from now, some of these guys come up and it is exciting. So they end up making all 3 picks. Now that it's over, are we looking at a team right now, when you look at Kevyn Adams and the makeup of this team? We didn't want to say anything before the draft because it was always possible that maybe the Sabres package a pick and a player. There was some Olofsson talk, things like that. Maybe take Olofsson and a player, and you go and you trade for a really young veteran that might fit the mold of this team. Not saying that can't still happen. It still can, but it won't happen with these draft picks. Well, I shouldn't say that either because they can still be traded. But anyway, nothing has happened. Do you start to feel like when it comes to the Buffalo Sabres and Kevyn Adams and his plan, and he's talked very openly about it and very candidly about it, do you get a sense, because I do, that at this point they're going to just do what they got to do to get to the cap floor, and this team is going to be this team with another goalie, and who knows who the goalie is going to be, but with the exception of goalies, assuming UPL is not going to be the guy with Craig Anderson to start the season, is that pretty much all it's going to do is get to the cap floor, and we pretty much already have our team for next year to continue progress? What do you think?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't think the cap floor is a big worry. I think they're okay there. I think whatever contract they get Olofsson done with is going to take care of a lot of that business. Plus they got, 4 or 5 other RFAs to get signed. All that stuff's going to come in at around 10 million or so. That more depends on what Olofsson's contract comes in at. Like everybody else is going to be a pretty standard re-signing. So yeah, the floor is not a worry. Like you want to get a few $1 million over the floor, which they will. Like Adams has talked a lot about adding a couple of forwards, which I know people are like, well, you got to put them. Well, they need a number 4 center. So that's one spot, but and you probably want to add some, you want to add some depth skill there maybe. But you're not going to break the bank if you don't have to.
Don't hold your breath for fireworks.
No, I don't think fireworks are really a thing. I still wonder what it's going to take for them to get the goalie that they're really eyeballing on. Obviously, the Murray thing falling apart is a bummer. But it shows to me that Adams is A, being aggressive, and B, looking for different solutions. Maybe not necessarily the more obvious ones. Because if they do that Murray thing, like the cap floor isn't a worry anymore. Like that's done.
Sure.
You add Bishop and then you add Murray. There's 10 plus million right there. But it does make me wonder, like, where else they might look. Like that's where I wonder where things could go. Now, we've talked about free agency. Like, that's not really an option. Colorado, Darcy Kemper, who just won a Stanley Cup, is going to be going to free agency because they just acquired Alexander Georgiev from the Rangers, and they said Georgiev's going to be the starter already for Colorado next season. So I was like, okay. Now, is Kemper a guy for Buffalo? Probably not. I mean, again, just won a cup. He probably wants a few years on a deal. Right now we don't believe Buffalo is a team that wants to get a goalie on to hand him out like a 4 or 5 year deal like that. Doesn't seem like the way they're going to go about it, but maybe Darcy likes a project. I don't know. Like, you don't know. Like, Darcy can come in and be like the guy who saves Buffalo. Who knows? But like that when it comes to, like, fireworks kind of stuff, the trading for a goalie seems to me more like the likely road, just because free agency thing didn't really work out that great last year. So. And there's a ton of teams that need goaltending. Like, there's so many teams that just need goaltending help, period. So, you don't want to get into that pond with a bunch of teams in free agency, because some of those teams might be more attractive locations or might have better opportunities. So, but a trade to pull out a goalie is still something in the back of my mind that seems more likely, but I don't know how you go about that. The goalie thing hinges on what they're going to do in free agency at forward, because you can tack on a forward in a deal or use a forward in a deal.
Do we find out sooner than later? Like, is there a good chance that we're having this conversation next week and the Sabres have done something to goalie? Free agency starts next Wednesday?
Starts Wednesday. Yeah, I think it's Wednesday. Yeah, it is Wednesday. It's the 13th. So,
yep.
Yeah, I think by the time we have this discussion next week, we already know who the number one is.
I hope so.
Or at least the guy competing to be the number one. If it's the guy, if the way we have to phrase it is the guy competing with Craig Anderson to be number one,
that's not
there's
good.
a problem. And again, that's not a knock on Craig. I love Craig Anderson, but, like, realistically, like, that cannot be the phrase we have to utter a week from now about what the goaltending thing is.
For people who, by the way, if you want to keep score, when the Sabres made their trades last year, when they traded Rasmus Ristolainen and Sam Reinhart, so Oslin ends up being the pick for Rasmus, right? Philly 16?
No, you're forgetting Jack Eichel.
Oh, Jesus.
16 is the Eichel trade.
Yes, oh my God.
Isaac Rosén was the Ristolainen trade.
Yeah, that was the year before. You're right. So Jack Eichel, so Oslin will be connected with Eichel. So it ends up being Oslin, Krebs, and Alex Tuck.
Mm-hmm.
So
and then whatever second, third round pick or whatever the hell they got.
That kind of puts a little bit of pressure on him. And then Yuri Kulich will be the guy. That was the Sam Reinhart trade, along with Devin Levi as well. So for people keeping score at home. Anyway, so before we get to our draft, the Sabres schedule that came out, I'm not going to post it. And probably, if you're a Sabres fan, you've already seen it.
We got to pick the wins? We got to pick the whole schedule? We got to steal Howard Simon?
Joe picks the Sabres?
Go do all 82 games?
You know what? Maybe we will do.
We're not doing that.
Just to be assholes, we're going to do that at some point this offseason.
We'll do it at the beginning of every month. How about that? Just pick the games for the whole month.
Season opener, October 13th. We already said that. Ottawa at home.
Sabres maybe Twitter. Matt Murray will start that game for Ottawa.
Sabres After Dark. That's a big fun thing on Twitter. Sabres After Dark, the hashtag. That's right away. 4-game Western Swing, October 18th through 25th.
The Western Canada Swing, too. Yeah. Like, they usually do that shit in February, and it's horrible.
Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and Seattle. Jack comes back with Vegas, November 10th. And then I looked it up. There were 2 separate 4-game homestands for the Sabres this year. And Toronto doesn't come to Buffalo until Tuesday, February 21st, which is their only time in Buffalo for the season. So, yeah, that's all the way out to February.
That means they're only playing the Leafs 3 times this season.
Yeah, two in Toronto.
What a break for the Leafs.
I looked. I know it is a break for the Leafs, man. Sabres own the Toronto Maple Leafs as bad as they were. But anyway, just a couple just tidbits, like I said, with the schedule. So, all right, again, this is our 50th starting five draft. This has been a lot of fun over the last year or so, even though, again, I haven't done so well, including last week. Last week, we did our best fast food chains, and Joe won 61% to 39%. I'll recap that. Joe took Chipotle, Popeyes, Taco Bell, Five Guys, and Arby's. I went with Chick-fil-A, Zaxby's, McDonald's, Wendy's, and Culver's. Look, you won. You deserved the W. I'm really not. I have no gripe with not winning the poll. I didn't do myself any favors, so I certainly didn't play to most of my audience that's based in Western New York with the Zaxby's pick and Culver's.
Yeah.
Though I stand by
those
them.
are both good picks.
If Zaxby's and Culver's was in Buffalo, this draft might have been different with voting wise.
If Culver's was in Buffalo, you would have people fighting about Anderson's versus Culver's.
Absolutely.
100%.
Man. Absolutely. And again, this is our milestone 50th. So just for people out there wondering, you've won, because some people think I've never won a poll. I've won some
polls. You've been
polls.
accused of tanking for I think each of the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, I pretty much have. That was probably the general sentiment. If you looked at the comments, it was, are you even trying?
Yeah.
Same shit as always. But anyway, you've won 32 and I've won 17. So you've almost lapped me. I mean, you got a very healthy lead. But I've won a couple here and there. I've won, like I said, I won 17.
Things have been so weird with the polls the last 5, 6, 7 weeks. We every time we recap it and we're like, oh, how do we think this is gonna go? And we're never right.
We're never right. Believe it or not,
this was closer.
61-39, which is a blowout, but by the standard of our polls, that was relatively close to a lot of what we've done recently. By the way,
you rallied too, because I raced out to a monster lead and I was like, this is kind of stupid. I was like, come on, man. But you rallied to get it to there.
At least semi-respectable.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll tell you what, I wanted, based on James Caan passed away, which sucks, man. Ultimately,
Caan friggin' ruled,
man. Anyway, it would have been really cool to do in tribute to him, to do a James Caan movies. But then I'm like, whoever picks The Godfather, your least favorite thing is somebody looking at one thing and saying the poll's over. That would have happened a ton. Because I mean, come on, him and The Godfather.
The poll is over after Godfather.
Yeah, it's over. So whoever had the first pick, that was the poll. So not going to do that. But rest in peace, James Caan. What we are going to do this week is TV comedies since 2000. So any comedy that's been around since 2000 or newer is fair game here. Now, I didn't even look at this before. Yeah, I did have the first pick. I actually went with Chick-fil-A, which did not go over well, quite obviously. So you're going to be on the clock and you're going to have the first pick here. Again, TV comedies since 2000.
You're going to hate the shit out of me. It's The Office is number one. I have my beefs with the later seasons of The Office, but the first 5 seasons of The Office are freaking perfect.
Yeah.
I don't need to talk The Office to you. Of all people on earth, you're the last person I need to justify picking The Office. So all I know is that I'm breaking your heart by taking The Office.
You are.
So that makes it worthwhile.
I was kind of hoping you'd say something else. It would have been obvious with me. I haven't binged it in almost 6 months though now. But
you're due. You're overdue.
I am definitely overdue. All right. So that's not surprising. I'm disappointed.
You had to know that's how it was going to play out, right?
Yeah.
Or did you think I was going to go? I mean, there's a few other picks that I would like to make, but
I think everyone in the world knew that I was taking that if I had the first pick. I think that was obvious. To be honest with you, though, I don't know. I thought there were a couple that you might go with.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, I got to bounce back here. You know what?
Yes.
I'm in it to win it this week.
Okay.
I feel like I'm locked in with these categories.
All right.
Or with these shows. So you take The Office, which would have been my first pick. I cannot lie, of course. I am going to go with my first pick. I'm going to go with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I was already typing that in.
It's been around now for a long time. And we've kind of talked about this because we've had other categories where some of these are going to be picked again because there were different, types of things.
Right.
So they kind of intertwine a little bit, but yeah, man, just the gang and the way they throw each other under the bus. they're all best friends, but they fucking pretty much hate each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. And that show is still, well, I shouldn't say it's still good because I did watch the latest season and that wasn't good. But this show in its heyday was one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. So I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to go with another show that's still on. And this is one I know you like. I'm going to go with Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I look, I love Larry David, man. I just love it. It's an adult version of Seinfeld, or more R-rated version, basically, of Seinfeld. And there's terms and things that come from that show to this day, like the accidentally on purpose. I sending a text to somebody or something like that, just things like that. I still laugh my ass off to this day. Larry David is just funny. It's a great cast too. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. Sunny in Philly and Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, no, I zero arguments with either of those. Those were two on my list that I was like, boy, I hope you don't pick those. But I was like,
if you did on my board, I learned I'm calling it the John Elway rule. I am never not going to stay with my board again.
That's honestly, that's the right way to do it. But you did leave another one of my favorites on the board, and it's Arrested Development. And I know Arrested Development can be kind of an acquired taste, but like, man, oh man, the first 3 seasons of that are perfect.
I love it.
That is a perfect damn series. And I'll mention one in comparison that I'm pretty confident you're not going to pick, and I know I'm not going to pick it. But the fact that it produced an immediate copycat that's not nearly as good in Modern Family tells me that Arrested Development was a perfect show.
Yeah. Yeah,
because I full confession, I do not care for Modern Family in any way. But to me, it's like it's rated PG. It's rated G Arrested Development, because Arrested Development's not a rated R type comedy show. It was still on network TV, but like, it's a soft serve version of Arrested Development. Like, same thing. Oh, wacky family, wacky rich family does dumb shit. Like, yeah, dude, I've already watched that series. Like, I don't care if they win all the damn Emmys. It's not a great show.
I never thought of that comparison, but that's a good one. You're right.
Yeah, Nate Geary might yell at me about it, but I don't care. If I know Nate loves Modern Family, which means I'm very correct in my opinion. So, my next pick though, I'm just going back down my list here, just to make sure I'm not skipping over something that I like way more. Just to make sure. I'm gonna stick to my guns here. Parks and Rec.
I was going there next.
I know it's like, I feel like that it's one that I was late to. But goddamn, what a show. It's just, classic great comedy with like a nice heart to it and like insane characters, which is wheelhouse for me.
I'll tell you right now, I hated the ending of it. I got a call. I got something stuck in my throat.
It's fine.
I hated the ending of it, but it's one of the best shows, period. It was right there with The Office.
Yeah.
Despite I hate the way the time lapse went so much into the future at the very end of the series. But man, you want to talk about a show that produced a lot of stars too? Or already had stars and then produced more stars with Chris Pratt. Oh my God, it was awesome fucking show. And I was literally gonna pick that next. All right, so I got 2 here. Well, I thought I was taking that one, and I'm not. All right, well, one of them's easy because I thought I had my next 2. I'm gonna go with 30 Rock. Okay. I love that show, NBC show. Alec Baldwin was awesome. Tina Fey, again, another great ensemble cast. Tracy Morgan was like the star of the show, but he wasn't even one of my 5 favorite characters on the show. But it was just so damn funny, man. And it never really fell off for me. I really like it a lot. So I'm going to go 30 Rock. This is where I get a choice between 2. I was really
to your board.
Parks and Rec and 30 Rock I was really feeling good about them, and Parks and Rec kind of, this is one I have to stay on my board. And I know this is a show that a lot of people love, and some people, and if you don't love it, you hate it. It's like not people who say, "Oh, this is pretty good." It's Schitt's Creek, and it's relatively it's kind of new. I love Schitt's Creek, man. I thought it was an absolutely hilarious show. David is one of the funniest characters on TV, and his sister. Moran was hilarious. I love that family on there. And this is about TV comedies, but that show also was kind of an uplifting show, man. It was a lot of feel good moments. There was a lot of tenderness to go with that comedy, but it was just hilarious, man. I laughed my ass off. And I know every time I bring up Schitt's Creek, I think of Marcel Louis Jacques. Of course, who, was here in Buffalo. He hated the fucking show. He goes, there's nothing funny about it. So I have that. I'm kind of a little bit gun shy because I hear somebody like Marcel say that. But you know what? I love Marcel, but screw him when it comes to this. I'm going Schitt's Creek. So 30 Rock and Schitt's Creek. So you've picked 3 and you got 2 more. I got a steal that I'm hoping to get. And I don't even know how to play for audiences, but it's one that I want bad.
I really hope I'm taking that from you right now. I really do. Because my pick is Veep.
Oh, it's a great show too.
Julie Louis-Dreyfus freaking rules on that show, man. So good.
Great cast.
So good. Yeah, super
Everyone's
cast.
funny on that show.
Yes.
It's like perfect.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. It's just such an insane show. And like the only thing that might take away from it is how politics has been the last few years, where it's kind of like, oh, it's like the parody that they do on Veep is kind of like, yeah, I mean, can you be funnier than normal life? it's tough to like outdo what normal life became. And it was like, oh, well, okay, I guess like, yeah, no, I freaking love Veep. Veep's so freaking great. My last pick is tough because like there are so many that I really like that I feel very comfortable picking there. But in the back of my mind, I'm just like, how many people have actually seen this, or how many people were as into it as I was.
Oh.
And then I get stuck and I'm just, and this is where you make fun of me for making the good pick as opposed to the pick that people know. And I'm like, okay. Cause I mean, we'll go over some of these afterwards, obviously. But I'm going to go, this show always made me laugh like an idiot because it's a concept that like initially I hated because I thought it was just dumb as shit. But then I watched it. I'm like, oh, it is dumb as shit, but it's really funny. It's The League.
Oh my God.
Oh man. I thought Veep was going to be the one that you were going to be pissed by. Oh, it was man.
It was,
dude, The League. Oh my God. So much stuff in that. Like, and my favorite character on the whole damn series is Jason Mantzoukas. Holy God Almighty. Oh. He walks into every scene and he steals it because he's an insane person, a completely insane person. And even like Nick Kroll. I don't really like Nick Kroll. Nick Kroll's really good on that show.
I could have, honestly, I could have taken that in the 3rd round.
Yes.
I literally, I did not think you were going to take that. I literally was hiding it or stashing it for the end. I absolutely would have taken, I knew you weren't going to take Schitt's Creek.
No.
I was confident I thought I'd be able to stash that and that would be like my 5th round fucking steal, my gem. I love that show, man.
Yeah.
Rafi, I love everything about that show.
Oh, my God, fucking Rafi.
Oh, God.
God damn. Like that. Like when that Rafi started showing up in that, I was like, who the hell's this guy? Like, this guy's disgusting. And then it's like, no, he's disgusting for a very good reason.
Man.
Yeah, man. I feel bad, but also I don't feel bad. All the drafts we've
done, this is about as shocked as I am with a late round selection anyway, because I did not think you were going to take that. I really didn't, man. I should have. That's just bad strategizing.
I think the part that hurts it is that they stopped making it, right? Like there hasn't, like they just stopped doing it, didn't they?
I don't know if they abruptly canceled it. I don't know. I don't think they abruptly canceled it. I can't remember how it ended, to be honest with you. I just, the whole concept, just that whole crew and how terrible they were to each other. It was kind of like Sonny and Philly in a way of just friends who are really terrible to each other and just shit talking.
Absolutely.
But that's how fantasy football leagues are. You talk shit to each other, you have the champ, the Shiva,
Sacco.
The Sacco. God, man, Taco was so fucking funny, Rafi. Oh my God. I am absolutely, honestly, legitimately disgusted right now. All right.
I had to make sure I was looking at you to see if that was the pick. And then you immediately ripped your headphones off. I was like, okay, that's
when you go back. You go back and you watch the video as you're starting to discuss the parameters of what you were picking, the concept. I kind of sort of felt what was coming, and I think I went like this at some point, kind of moving.
Like, no, don't do it. YouTube. Don't do it.
Yeah. Ugh. All right. Well, I got to make a fifth pick. Which, by the way, I don't know. Maybe it's just me and you absolutely love this show, and we're going.
That's very possible. That is extremely possible. And like I said, Nick Kroll's kind of unlikable, so I can understand people just being like, I don't like that show because of him.
That might, you know what? After this draft, this might be the next show I re-binge. The League I'm talking about. I might go back and binge that again. All right, so I got one more pick, and I got to stay on my board. And it's a funny show. It's actually probably a more mainstream popular show. Scrubs. I like Scrubs. I liked Scrubs. However, it is a comedy, but it was also kind of annoying. Like Zach annoyed. Like the characters annoyed me at times. And what I really liked the most about Scrubs is it kind of had a message like behind each episode. You know what I mean? Like a more serious message or
classic old like 80s sitcom type thing.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I just when I look at my board and that's the best of what I got left. Literally at the end, there's nothing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, all 10 picks between you and I. This is the first time this has ever happened in all of our drafts. I've always had 1 or 2 picks left over to choose from. Scrubs is the last on my top 10.
Wow.
It was 10.
Well, to make you feel better, the other show I was thinking of was Scrubs. Like it was a toss-up between Scrubs and The League. And I was like, all right. Because like there are some other ones where I was like, this show is really funny too. Like Party Down. I love Party Down. Yeah. Party Down's friggin' funny as hell.
Scrubs is it's funny, but it's not that funny. Now there are 3 shows that I have written down as shows that I think are overrated, that are really, really popular. And you mentioned one of them already, Modern Family. I think Modern Family was all that funny. The other 2 were How I Met Your Mother, which was the graphic for the lead into this draft. I liked Barney, but I didn't care about Ted. Ted was
the ending to that show kills the entire
it's the one
series.
It's maybe the worst ending that I've ever seen on a TV show that I was ever invested in. So anyway, How I Met Your Mother and Big Bang Theory. That's another one that's very, very, very popular. I just never really
never entered my mind once.
The other, and then the one I had honorable mention was Community. I did like Community, so I at least flirted with that one. But
some of the anime, I don't know. There's the animated series, which that tends to give us people give us crap about that. They're like, it's not a really sitcom. Like, okay, you could tell me Archer's not a great show. Like, come on, man. Like that whole thing's like standard, like sitcom setup, like that Archer's, I love Archer, but yeah, it's like there was too many easier picks, too many other picks that made sense.
Let me recap these real quick here. So Joe went first overall. Joe took The Office, Arrested Development, Parks and Rec, Veep, and The League. I took Sunny in Philadelphia, Curb Your Enthusiasm, 30 Rock, Schitt's Creek, and Scrubs. I mean, honestly speaking, I don't hate my roster at all. And I will tell you, as the number 1 Office fan out there, I get a lot of pushback on Twitter. Like if you said, what's the most overrated show? You're going to see a lot of people say The Office. So don't be surprised when this poll comes out if a lot of people criticize that pick. And trust me, I pick The Office for everything. So I hear it a lot.
I also wonder if people are going to be like, oh, Pat didn't get The Office. Well, now I can speak how much I like The Office. I just do it to bust Pat's ass.
Nobody, like I said, is when it comes to The Office, takes more shit. There's no in between with The Office. Fans either love the show or they hate it. You know what I'm saying?
I made it very clear. Everything after season 5 is very spotty for me. So like the first 5 seasons of that are as good as it gets.
50th poll. It would be nice to even win or lose. Let's just have a close one. Anyway, follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Yerdon. Maintenance Day podcast every Monday. Joe's going to be doing some twitching, more of it soon. So, like I said,
not just in general. I mean, like actual Twitch, the streaming Twitch element.
So make sure you follow him on Twitter. I'm sure he'll have updates about that. All right, man. Sabres draft, at least round 1, I should say, in the books. It's not like the second and third rounders can't come up and become great players as well. Right. But Anyway, good time, man. Good show. Thanks for doing it so late. We are literally we're after 1 o'clock in the morning now, so this will be out an hour.
This will be up in 6 hours.
You know what's funny? We were talking. So you did the Switch and all this stuff, and your voice was the one shot, but you could hear me. I'm coughing. My voice is hoarse as hell, man. I'm the one who lost my voice.
Anybody who watched this video saw me slamming water every time I wasn't talking. So we'll see how my voice sounds tomorrow.